Warm greetings from Redwood City, from Insight Meditation Center. And as we begin, this meditation, I want to make a simple statement about the Buddhist practice, and that Buddhist practice is to discover and wake up the inner life that we have, so that inner life becomes the outer life. It shines into the outer world. And not everyone really knows they have an inner life. In Buddhist practice, we are meant to become the caretakers of our inner life, our inner well-being, the quality of our hearts. And not to make other people the custodians of our hearts and our inner well-being. And so it requires a kind of deepening into what's really here. And a lot of the mindfulness practice is to become kind of sensitive enough, you might say still enough, quiet enough, but sensitive enough to begin and oriented enough to this deeper inner quality of our heart, our state of being, our quality of being. And often it's easy to live on the surface of life, and it's often easy to be concerned with how the conditions in the world, that the conditions of the world have to be just right so that I could feel at ease, at peace, at home, in compassion here within me. And so we're lining up things in the world and reacting to things in the world and trying to fix things in the world. And of course, some of that is necessary and appropriate, but to connect the quality of our hearts to the conditions of the world means we're constantly at the whims of how the world is. But to become the custodian of our own hearts, our own inner life, it changes the whole game, and it provides stability, it provides a deeper sense of wisdom, compassion. It changes the whole nature of how we live in the world, and the world is what it is, and we take care of it, hopefully, but our inner life is not so dependent on how things are in the world. It's a radical notion. So in meditation, we were trying to become sensitive to this quality of the inner life, and to understand it, to be with it. And the doorway for that is the body. The doorway for that is the breathing of the body. To really kind of begin dropping in and finding out, if I listen deeply to my body inside, what do I find there? To the heart, to the quality of my being. And then to be present for it. So to take a meditation posture, to take a posture that you believe will allow you to become sensitive to the feelings, the emotional states, the deep quality of how you are, whether it's difficult or whether it's wondrous or just neutral. And to take a few long, slow, deep breaths as a little ritual reminder that this here, now, in this body, is the meditation center, is the monastery, is the temple, the sacred ground of practice here. Taking deeper breaths, and as you exhale, let go into this place, this sacred ground, this body of yours. Perhaps releasing yourself a bit to the pull of gravity, allowing the weight of your body to connect you, ground you against whatever is supporting your body. The floor, your cushion, your chair, your bed, whatever it might be. And then to let your breathing return to normal. And the little ritual of relaxing the body at the beginning of a meditation is to support that movement to a deeper sensitivity, to settle in. So to relax the shoulders. If the shoulders are tense, there's a pulling away from the inner life, really being connected. Relaxing the shoulders. It's very easy to, when the belly is tight and pulled in, to be somehow pulled away from really being connected to what's deep inside. And softening the the muscles of the face. Many of the expressions that our face makes throughout the day often be a reaction to what's happening around us, or how we want to be in the world, externally. But let the face come to a deeper rest, so you can not be so you can be more internally sensitive. And then ever so gently, kindly, but also with some determination, allow your body to experience breathing. Allow the chest to feel the movements as you breathe. Allow the belly to feel the movements of breathing there. If the shoulders are moving as you breathe, allow the shoulders to experience the movement. If the nostrils are sensitive to the air going in and out, allow the nostrils and the top of your upper lip. Feel that sensations of the breath moving in and out. Allow the body to release fully as you exhale. The exhale is kind of a release. Let the influence of that release allow for a fuller letting go. The beginning of an inhale can be allowed to begin, almost as if you wait for a moment, a fraction of a moment, at the end of, after the exhale, so you allow the in-breath to appear. Allowing the inhale to expand and fill you. Allowing the exhale to release. And as you're breathing, if there's any feeling or sensation of inner stillness or quiet, in spite of the thinking you might be doing, breathe with that stillness, breathe with that quiet. And then becoming aware. How are you right now feeling your inner life, the quality of your heart or inner being? With a sensitivity to how you feel in the depths of your of yourself. Does that feel there comfortable or uncomfortable? Settled or unsettled? Is there a feeling of safety or is there fear? Is there contentment or discontent? Below the moods of the moment and below the concerns of the world, when you're kind of quietly, deeply left to yourself, not needing to respond or react to anything outside, just you alone. What do you discover in there? How does it feel in there? In whatever way that it feels. To hold that kindly. To meet that with a gentleness and a supportive awareness, just to be aware. And perhaps as you keep breathing, to breathe through that inner state, whatever way you are inside. Breathe with it. Allow for it to be the way it is. No need to judge it or react to it, being for or against it, liking or not liking. You might have those feelings, but you don't need to really focus on them. It's Gently breathe with your inner life. Breathe through it. Feel it gently, quietly. A sensitivity to breathing, body connecting you to some depth within. Can you allow your thinking mind to become quieter? Not just to make it quiet, but so there can be a heightened sensitivity to how you're feeling within. Your emotional state, your mood, your state of being, state of mind. And to give yourself quiet, sensitive time to let yourself feel and be with what's going on for you within. And if what you're feeling are common states for you, you might feel, sense deeper inside, underneath them or in the center of them. Because some of the ways we feel are symptoms of deeper things still. And only by this deeper sensitivity can we feel what's even deeper underneath. as we become more sensitive to our inner life, and we learn to breathe with it, meaning learn to allow it to be and not react to it or pick it up or complicate it. Breathing with it just means that we're kind of staying fluid and relaxed with it. To gently, quietly now feel the nature of inner sensitivity itself. Not necessarily what you're sensitive to, but this inner sensitivity to your inner life, your inner quality of being. What's it like for you to be sensitive? And rather than being too concerned with what you're sensitive about, there's something precious and valuable with the sensitivity itself, the knowing, the recognition. And then to turn that sensitivity outwards, to let it shine outwards into the world. And to allow yourself to be sensitive to all the joys and sorrows of the world, all the struggles and successes of the people in the world. And perhaps with that inner sensitivity, there could also be a feeling of care, or tenderness, or love, compassion for the world in which we gaze upon, the world in which we are sensitive to. And if there is anything like care or goodwill, well-wishing, to allow these words of loving kindness to be spoken from the sensitivity, from the tenderness, tender contact with the world. May all beings be happy. May all beings feel safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free. And may all beings everywhere respect each other. So this is the now fourth talk on mindfulness of emotions. And I'm going through what the Buddha called the four foundations of mindfulness to offer four different perspectives on what in English we call emotions. And in a sense, we're also kind of deconstructing them a little bit to look at the component parts of what builds up to what we think of as an emotion. And the value of that is that when we see an emotion as a solid unitary thing, as an entity almost in itself, it's much more complicated to relate to it sometimes than it is to actually see and be sensitive to the different pieces that come together to add up to the emotion we have. And when we look at these four foundations of mindfulness of the Buddha, there's actually a very important distinction that's made. And because it's a literary set of instructions, it has a kind of literary structure, and that structure has a pivot, and that pivot has to do with the distinction I talked about yesterday between feelings of the flesh, with the language of the Buddha, and feelings not of the flesh. Some translators will translate it as feelings, worldly feelings, and spiritual feelings. I kind of like to think of a kind of surface feelings and deep feelings. So, for example, if you're sitting having a wonderful meal in a friend's kitchen, and it's very cozy and nice and warm and very friendly and peaceful and loving place. If you're sitting there and really enjoying the flavor and savoring the flavor of the food with your tongue, that's maybe nice, but that would be of the flesh. But to feel so peaceful and content and feel like you can relax and really settle into who you are, and that deeper feeling of deep settling that comes with being in such a safe place, friendly place, that would be considered not of the flesh. That's something deeper inside. If someone says mean words to you and you get angry, that might be a little bit more considered of the flesh. It's more on the surface of our life. It might touch the place where we feel insecure about ourselves, and someone's angry with us, then someone has mean words to us, we react because it's touched the sensitive place inside where we feel insecure. And so it's kind of the surface response might be anger, but deeper inside, there might be different layers that are going on. We might feel hurt. We might feel phenomenally uncomfortable. And when we react from our discomfort, or we react because we're trying to protect ourselves from our hurt. But to turn in and go deeper in and feel the hurt rather than staying with the anger begins coming closer to what the Buddha might call not of the flesh, that which is the inner, the deeper. The place where we feel hurt might itself represent a symptom of something even deeper, a place where we feel a desire for safety. And that might be come out itself out of a desire for self-care, which is a beautiful thing to have. And so to begin not staying on the surface of things, but to be able to kind of start being mindful enough and sensitive enough to find out what's going on inside more deeply is part of the art of mindfulness. And this pivot of the Buddha's instructions moves in the direction of becoming aware of what's deeper inside. This plays itself out in the third foundation in a variety of different ways, two different ways. The instructions there are divided into two categories. One I like to think of as being the motivations, the desires that come with emotions, with some emotions. So emotions many times are part and parcel of the motivational movement of people, what we want and what we don't want. And so emotions can be deeply connected to our desire for things. And our desires are frustrated, we get angry, for example. And so to start tuning into the desires that are there. And some desires are wonderful, healthy and appropriate. And some desires are causes of suffering. So the Buddha then starts making a distinction between those kinds of I call desires here, that are wholesome and not wholesome, helpful and not helpful. And he says that when you have him, to interpret him, or for this purpose of emotions, we want to notice, is there craving, is there unhealthy desire, or for something, or is there desire against something, to want something to go away, which the Buddha calls dosa, or hate. For desire, he calls it raga, which I like to think of as craving, very strong. It borders on lust, somewhere between lust and passion, so I think of craving. Or is there a lot of delusion and confusion and perplexity and uncertainty around the emotions we have? So that's kind of on one end. The other side of that divide between kind of what's on the surface and deep inside are those motivations, those desires, which come from some deeper place of health at the inside of us. So the Buddha just calls them non-craving, non-hate, non-delusion. But it's well understood in these ancient texts that the non refers to the opposite. And rather than just being, the advantage of saying non-craving is that rather than saying, for example, generosity, it allows for a bigger span of positive emotions than just naming one. And so in the language of the Buddha, this non-craving implies all the opposites. And so generosity is a kind of desire too. And goodwill is a kind of a desire. And wisdom is not quite a desire, but it's the opposite of delusion, which is kind of understanding what we can do and how we can benefit the world. So it's possible to notice in the emotions we have, is there a desire? What kind of desire is there? Is there wanting desires or aversive desires? Are those desires kind of wholesome and useful and nourishing? Or are they actually not so nourishing, not really deeply connected to what's deep inside? And so like sexual craving, as biologically important as it is and powerful and physiological as it is, all too often will lead to kind of a surface movement of, even to the point of some kind of alienation from ourselves and even from other people at times. But if there is generosity or love or goodwill, that's also part of sexual expression, then there's a whole different way in which that plays itself out than just a surface pleasure versus some deeper kind of wellspring of something going on. So to ask ourselves, what's the nature of the desire is in the play in the emotions I have? Or what's the nature of the aversions or that we have? What is going on here? So to make that distinction is to be able to then to differentiate between what I'm calling surface and what starts to become deeper and deeper and welling up from the deep health of a deeper. It also begins tuning into the quality of what's going on inside of us, the quality of craving, the quality of hate to what goes on inside is not comfortable. The quality of generosity, the inner quality of characteristic of love feels so much better inside. And so to be able to distinguish between these and be sensitive to that requires us to stop being externally focused only and wanting things out there and having things out there and or being at the surface level of judgments and interpretations and commentary about what's happening, stories, and dropping down deeper to really feeling what's really going on here. How do I really feel? So in this third foundation of mindfulness, the Buddha instructs people to notice, is there craving or is there non-craving? Is there hostility or is there non-hostility? Is there delusion or is there non-delusion? He goes further, and he also notices, instructs another kind of dichotomy between things like, is the mind contracted or is the mind expansive? Is the mind settled or is the mind unsettled? Is the mind concentrated or is it not concentrated? Is the mind liberated or is it not liberated? So it's possible to feel also the quality of the mind or the awareness. Generally, if we're really preoccupied with unhealthy desires like real craving or real hate, and you really start sensitive to this inner life, we'll start noticing the mind gets narrow and tight and constricted. But if we're really kind of resting in or allowing in a generous way, generosity and love and wisdom, there's a way in which that is more conducive to an expansive mind, an open mind. As we meditate and we're less preoccupied, the mind becomes less narrow and small, and the mind starts feeling expansive. Some people call it big mind. It just feels like the mind has no boundaries and feels very spacious and very open. Or when the mind is caught up in greed, hate, and delusion, it's often unsettled. As we practice, we start noticing a deeper settling, a relaxing into ourselves, and to start feeling that difference between unsettled and settled is an important part of this becoming a caretaker for our inner quality of our inner life. And then this thing about being liberated, this beautiful feeling of not being caught in the vice of things, in the grip of things, not being caught in preoccupation, not being clinging, not being glued to, not having this compulsivity, drivenness kind of in the mind, and that takes over and doesn't really allow us much choice or freedom. And to feel what that's like in the mind, and then to feel what it's like for the mind to be free, the absence of those things, the mind to kind of find itself and have choice and freedom in what it does, and have this spaciousness and openness and open to possibility and ease to it. To be able to understand a liberated mind and an unliberated mind. And this also speaks to this kind of surface and what I'm calling deeper inside. That an unliberated mind is usually kind of caught up on the surface of the mind in a sense. The liberated mind is not only deep, but it's expansive. And this is where, what I said earlier in the meditation, that Buddhist meditation practice is to discover and awaken our inner life, and then shine that out into the world. So saying inner life might sound like we're disappearing from the world. We're kind of going into a little kernel inside and tuning everything else out. But it's more like we're turning ourselves inside out. We're going in deeply and becoming free, and that turns ourselves inside out, and we are now sensitive and, in the world with that inner life. And it's no longer inner then, it's inner and outer, it's whole. So to start tuning in to what's more feels like on the surface and feels uncomfortable, and what's deeper inside or freer or more expansive is we can do that with emotions. And that's what's interesting about, one of the things that's interesting about that is it's kind of stepping back from whatever emotions we're having, finding some degree of freedom in order to recognize what's there. And when we recognize what's there, we can start making a distinction between what is of the flesh, not of the flesh, what's of the surface, and what's really deep inside, deeper and deeper. And those are part of the distinctions we can make to really start deconstructing what an emotion is. Not disrespecting emotions, but to really respect them and see clearly what's actually happening in this domain of our life. So thank you. And so we have one more talk on this emotions, the last foundation that the Buddha gave, and the one that's most connected to liberation. And before we end, I just want to mention that so tomorrow, after we finish at this time tomorrow, those of you who'd like, we can switch over to Zoom and have a community meeting for our YouTube community. And that Zoom link will be listed a few different places on what's new at IMC's website and the calendar at IMC, and also on the chat here, a couple of times in the chat. And I look forward to those of you who want to come tomorrow and just hang out a little bit and have a meeting together. So thank you.